Hi, my name is Sam Welker, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about the Mountain Kit. This is our newest product at thinkparticle.com, and what it is it's a pack or a set of packs of height maps for mountains and flow maps, and you can do a lot with these. Ideally, it's for landscape creation and also for a few other abstract purposes like creating asteroids, rocks, things like that. The motion community is really good at coming up with creative alternative ideas for other things you could do with it, but this is the purpose it was designed for. So today we're going to have some fun and look at this asteroid that we've built with the Mountain Kit, and we're actually going to talk a little bit about workflow with working with Zbrush and bringing it into Cinema 4D. Now this Mountain Kit actually works with any program that can work with displacement maps or 3D sculpting, and it's primarily made for 3D sculpting for making larger mountain ranges, but you can work with it in any form that you need to. So let's go ahead and jump in. Right now we've got an Octane render scene opened up with our sculpt here, and this was created in Zbrush in probably about 10 minutes, just to kind of rough something out, something kind of cool. And what we're going to do is we're going to just use actually some simulation techniques in Cinema 4D to simulate this asteroid, just to kind of have it float in space and just get that asteroid kind of animation feel and look. And this is a great asteroid. Maybe not the best for a super up close asteroid because of the resolution, but what you'll look at here is this object actually. Let's look at a specific detail. This is really lightweight. Like 8,000 polygons, really low resolution. So we're doing pretty good, considering how much geometry we have, and for being able to frame it at about this angle or about this distance and have it look that good, I'd say we're doing pretty solid. So this is an 8K map, and we'll show how to create that. And also, just really quick, another thing I want to talk about is that I've used a texture from cgtextures.com, just a gravel texture, and it's gravel 0092 underscore 5 underscore small, or underscore S for small. So that's really all you need to know. So anyways, this awesome little asteroid here is just floating in space and very easy to create. So let's talk about this, and let's jump into Zbrush and show how to create one of these. So this is our asteroid, and what we're going to do is we're actually just going to initialize Zbrush and start again. So the fun thing is experimenting with the Mountain Kit. And I find that when you create something abstract, the best way to do that is to just kind of discover it. So what we're going to do is drop in a sphere and make sure that we have edit mode on. We're going to make it a Playmesh 3D sphere, and we're going to start by using the move brush. So we're going to hit B, M, and V, and what that's going to do is let us get the move brush. And this technique also works in Cinema 4D with the grab brush or pull brush. I'm not really sure what it's called. Anyways, let's go ahead and start just grabbing this geometry and pulling it out and kind of shaping up an asteroid kind of shape that we want to work with. So this is looking like a little bit of a jelly bean, but once we add some more detail, it'll look a lot better. So I think that shape right there actually is a great start. One thing we might want to do is just pull a little bit more detail up here. And actually, I'm going to leave it. We'll do that later if we decide to. So what we're going to do is start dividing this. So the point of creating a really, really solid a bit of geometry is to have some really high resolution meshes. So that last one was in 2K, or excuse me, 2 million polygons. But we're going to do this one in 8 million. So let's hit B, S, and T. That's going to give us our standard brush. So the next thing we're going to do is go to the stroke and make sure that we have our rectangle, our drag rectangle stroke on. And if we use that, it's gonna pull out a sphere, and it's not really what we want. I mean, if you really want to add some shape to your object, you can use that, but this isn't going to cover it. What we're going to need is to import our alphas. So let's go ahead and let's jump in. So what we have is the mountain kit, which comes with 5 different packages. 5 different packages of height maps and flow maps, depending on which version you pick up. You can buy each of these individually or the whole bundle together and save $25 to get all of them, and they run about $25 each. Also, if you are watching this at the time of release, we actually have a current sale going on for the launch until Saturday this week, today's August 4th, so that should be August 7th, I believe. But you should get 10% off for that. And what we're going to be doing is using these height maps. And these are the flow maps that come with it, which can be very useful if you want to have some flow and look to your mountain based off of real-world erosion simulations. But in the meantime, we're going to just go ahead and grab a height map from the detail pack. We're going to use number 5. Let's go ahead and pull that up again, because number 5 has this really nice sparse detail. And actually, we'll use number 6. We used number 5 on the last one. And what this will do is get us some good rocky texture first. So the first thing we're going to do is block out. Actually, we've blocked out the shape, and we're going to give it some texture before we block out any details into it. So let's just start dragging these out. And we just drag. And what you'll notice is that if we drag these in different scales and in different directions, we start to get these looks that are not repetitive, and we can get this nice grungy texture. And the more we pull out, the more you'll see this. So now you're starting to see that this is a nice rocky terrain sort of texture. And you don't have to worry about it being repetitive because we're varying it in size, and we are overlapping it and pulling the brush in different directions. So that'll help. And you don't have to do that, since you're going to pick up the mountain kit, and picking up the mountain kit includes more than just one brush. You can actually switch to another brush at any given point and just keep going. So even with just one mountain kit pack, you'll have a lot of variety because you can do a lot with just one brush. Now, the real value is when you get the whole kit, and that's all 50 brushes together, or height maps in this case, which can work as brushes. And you can actually create some really cool terrain and styles based off of that. So, and just to prove that point, let's go ahead and grab another brush again from a different pack, just to show that this does work. So we'll grab the Mountain Brush 5 from the main pack, and this gives a very different look, and that's super valuable because if you look at that, this is a very coarse sort of texture. And then we can go ahead and grab another one, and we can do that with number 10 in this case, and just pull it out, and there you go. And the thing about the original pack is that these are a lot sharper, which is why the detail pack is really nice for adding texture and detail, because it's not as sharp, and you can add all of that detail without having to worry about the mountains actually moving up your geometry too much. So we're going to go ahead and call that good for that detail pass. So the next thing we're going to do is actually we're going to just add a little bit more detail, just some wide detail, with the detail brush number 5, or the detail height map number 5. And these are actually reforming the actual shape of our geometry. So if you need to not have it reform your geometry shape, you can actually just pull down the intensity, and you can still get a lot of detail in there. And you might have to pull a little bit more, but it works pretty well. And because we're working in a very high resolution, you can actually grab the pull brush again, or the move brush, and you can actually just move the geometry again, and it keeps all that detail and resolution in it, which is pretty solid if I do say so myself. So we're going to go ahead and go back and just add in a little bit more. We're just going to get a few more strokes. And that's really good. So we've talked about adding detail and getting the general shape down. But now what we want to do is go ahead and move to the next step. And for an asteroid, of course, the next step has to be some craters, because everybody loves a good crater. So we're going to go into the abstract pack, and we're going to just drag in a crater, which is our first height map. And we actually have three crater height maps, so let's look at them. We have our first one, which is our abstract. We have our abstract number 2, which is a split crater. Then we have our wide crater, which has a different flow map and a different erosion and noise to it, which is number 6. And also, if you use number 9 inverted, it makes an incredibly solid crater too. So let's go ahead and use number 1, and then we'll use number 9 to help emphasize that detail. So we're going to pull out a really strong crater and a smaller secondary crater, and then maybe a third crater. And we'll pull out one more, but at an angle. And what that's going to do is maybe not that harsh of an angle. That's going to give us a warped or a squished crater. So let me show you how that works. If we pull it out, we're looking at an angle, and I'm actually catching the right angle right there, so it's not working. But if we pull this out down here, or just straight head on, it's going to be circular. But if we pull it out down here, it should be ovular. And for some reason, this one example is not working. And it's actually kind of funny. It's a little less ovular here. Anyways, it's not working this one time, which is kind of funny. There you go. That's how it works. So let's go ahead and pull that out. But this one we're going to make more subtle, and we're just going to pull it down right here. Maybe not that subtle. And maybe we can make this one big, really big. And then one more right here. And we're going a little crater crazy, so actually we'll just leave it at that. And then we're going to, as we said, grab number 9, abstract number 9, and we're going to pull up the intensity, hold Alt, and just push this in. And just hit the center of our craters, and it might take a few tries if you're missing. And you can overlap the edges a little bit and get away with quite a bit, and it works just fine. Even with a bit more overlap right there, it works. And some of those were a little strong, so what I'm going to do is actually not make it as intense, and we'll just do this last one. And just to show you the effect of the crater without the actual other crater, with just the number 9 pulled in, it's like taking a chunk out of it. So if you want to have a crater which has these lips around it, or these edges around it, these rings around it, then you can use crater or abstract mountain number 1, and then you can use it in conjunction with number 9. But if you want to just take a chunk out of this, the best way to do that is probably with abstract number 10 or number 9. And we'll just overlap these a bit, and yeah, not really loving that one, but this works. We're actually going to take that last crater out, and this is a solid asteroid. It looks like it's had some damage, and I'm going to add that height map one more time for the crater, because I feel like this doesn't have enough of an edge on it. But that was too strong, so we're going to do it one more time with about half of the intensity. And now that edge is there. Cool. So now we have our crater, and this is really solid, and we can add a little bit more post detail. So we're going to just grab that number 5 brush again and just start dragging it onto this and making sure that our crater is really coming together. And we'll just warp or wrap around it and see that this is looking pretty good. There are some things I want to do though. I don't want this crater, So let's go ahead and go back to an earlier subdivision and smooth it out, and then we'll go to a higher subdivision, smooth it out, and just jump around different subdivisions and make sure that we can get that to disappear. And this is nice because sometimes you want to just add this idea you have, and then later you realize that's not going to work. And then you can just go in and use the same brushes we used originally again, and actually just pull in all that detail again, and you have this new set of geometry here, or sculpting, that has really come together quite nicely. And if you mix an additive technique with a subtractive technique by pulling in and pushing out with the same brush at different angles and different sizes, you actually get these really nice variations of texture detail here. So let's go ahead and frame this up. This is a really good crater. It looks kind of like it's got this like man on the moon sort of face, which is kind of funny. But I think it'll cut it. And just to add a little bit more detail, we might add just one or two more craters really quick, and then we'll pull out some UV mapping techniques, and we will use those with some displacement maps, and then bring it straight into Cinema 4D to show you how we can render it. So let's just pull these all out, and let's do that one again. And we will add a little bit more here and here. And I do want to have the lips of these be a little bit stronger, so let's pull it out. And that's pretty good. There's a little overlap there that we can fix, so we'll do that really quick. Okay. Now that's a really high resolution crater, and I think it looks really good. And one thing we could do if we want to is kind of bring a little bit more detail back into this crater. I think it looks too much like a face, so I want to break it up. And I'm just dragging these out a couple times, and then I'm going to invert the drag again. And now it'll be more like a ring around what was a crater. And you'll get a lot of detail there. And again, we can go back to that technique of smoothing this out. And pull in that detail again. And let's just smooth this detail. All right, and we're gonna use mount number 5 again. Actually, this is a different mount number 5. This is mountain number 5, not mountain detail 5. And this will actually give us some nice mountainous look right here. And we'll use mountain detail number 5 to add that final kick right there. And I think that's pretty good. There's a little bit of an edge around this, and actually just pulling out this geometry here with more detail and then pushing it back in with more detail will take care of a lot of that. And it'll give us a lot more of an edgier feel here, but that looks like it's been collided with a few other asteroids as well, which helps create a coarse look. So it'll be nice. It'll look pretty good. So let's go ahead and take this, and we're going to start by giving it a UV map. And we actually want to set this to 8192 because we're going to be working with a very high resolution displacement map. And we want to make sure that we have enough geometry in here that it looks pretty good just right off the bat. So let's keep it at 100,000 polys and delete the lower. And let's go ahead and create an adaptive UV tile. And then we're going to go to the displacement map and set adaptive smooth UV and 32-bit. And this has worked for my tests. And then we're going to just hit create displacement map, and it's going to work, and it's going to prepare a displacement map and project it onto the geometry, and you'll actually see it initially. But what we can do is see it with the higher resolution sculpt, just to confirm that it's the right shape. So we'll go ahead and pause while that calculates. All right, so our asteroid is it's dandy. This is actually the low resolution version with the displacement map. So I mean, for those of you that are watching this with HD on, you probably should be able to tell. But it looks good. And then if we just turn on the high resolution version, basically with the displacement map on, we should be able to turn it on and off, and it would theoretically just double the level of detail. So it is, and now we're done with our sculpt. And all we have to do is just send it to our program. And we can hit Go Z, and it will go through Zbrush to the scene right here. And what we'll do is we'll just hit Cut, Control X, and we'll create a new scene and just go ahead and get started in here. So we'll go ahead and create a glossy material, and we're going to just start editing the material in the network. And I need to just get this the file reference for the displacement, and we'll just start building out this map really quickly. So this works in the same way in really any type of program. This would work in Maya, Houdini, 3ds Max, all of these apply the same way. You just need to take your displacement maps and with whichever renderer you're using and drop it on, and you can also use the bump map with it, though I've had some weird results with that, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend it with Octane in Cinema 4D. And we'll just use 3 centimeters for the displacement. And the next thing we're going to do is start working a little bit on the texture of the actual material, and I like to do that here. So we'll just make it a little darker and use kind of a darker specularity. That's a pretty rough specularity. So it's going to start looking a little bit more in line with what our goal is. And we'll pull up the index to something between 2.5 and 3. So that's kind of more of a metallic index of refraction. And that'll give us a good look. And the next thing we might want to do is grab an image texture, and let's make sure that we have a transform and projection on that. And we'll grab just a nice gravel and drop this into the diffuse. And let's close this and go back to the node editor so we can actually see those two. Okay, so let's go ahead and just hit render. And one thing we need to do is have a light in the scene. So let's pause this and set that up. So we'll just set it up really high, pretty much just above the camera. Okay, and it is going to create the geometry. And one thing we can do now to cancel out that background, we'll pause this, is make a sphere that is really large. In this case, we're going to use 10,000 centimeters and create a diffuse material, drop it on it. And we're just going to make it straight black, right click, and use the visibility tag to turn off shadow visibility. And now we won't have the sky affecting this. So that's going to give us a direct light. I haven't really found another way to do that in Octane. And also we need to mix the sky texture. And now we can offset the north, and we can actually just pull this down. Let's pull our north back to where it was. We'll just pull this back and get this nice backlit texture. And we want to zoom in and see that this is only kind of working right now. What we'll want to do is actually go into the transform settings and pull it down, and maybe a little smaller even. And that's actually starting to look really good already. But what we might want to do is not use the UVs But one thing we can try is spherical mapping or box mapping. And I think we need to resend the scene every time we change the UV maps, but I'm not positive on that. So anyways, we've got a really good texture here, and it's rocky. It's a little small. If you zoom in, you can actually see the pebbles. And what I want to do is have the pebbles be about the size of maybe this circle right here. So let's double the size. Okay, so that'll be good for that texture. And we're actually going to also use that with a color correction. And we're going to pull that in and put it in the bump. And we'll go ahead and drop the saturation down so we can just use that height map. And that's really strong, so we're going to go back and adjust that. All right, so the way to fix this is, first of all, this is a really harsh bump map. And that can be resolved by taking the maybe the gamma down pretty extensively. And that actually seemed to solve it. So without the bump map and with the bump map, and where you'll really notice that is the little details right over here. And that's still kind of strong, so let's pull it down again. And that's without the bump map, with the bump map. And it adds just a little bit of extra detail. And now we have this nice floating asteroid in space. And oops, let's go ahead and rotate it around so we can preview some of these parts that we made specifically for some fancy lighting, like working with having these, what are they called? Craters. And this broken up part right here that we talked about actually looks really solid. And, you know, the nice thing about this is we can, you know, duplicate this and rotate it and scale it down and pull it down, and you know, these two can interact. And we'll just select both of these and make sure that they are rigid body objects, and we'll just set the gravity to 0, and we'll turn on what's called actually, first we'll set on the mode dynamics setting, so if they bump inside the craters, it doesn't have any problems. And in the force, we'll use follow position and follow rotation in Cinema. And that's just a way to set up a rigid body simulation in Cinema so that they interact with each other. And we'll pause Octane because during this part, this would be really slow. And we're going to hide the sphere so we don't keep on grabbing it and moving around the scene all weird. So, and they're not moving, and that's probably because we haven't put anything in the scene to cause them to move. There's no forces. So we'll just add a turbulence, and we'll set it to 50 and turn it up pretty big on the scale. And just hit play. And that's actually really weird. So let's set the frequency down to 10%. And that's a little bit better. Set it to 20. And maybe bring down the scale, see if that affects it and helps them come closer to each other. Turn up the follow position. Another thing that might help is actually turning off follow position and follow rotation. That might affect it positively. Okay, so it's still pretty strong. One thing we'll do that I did earlier actually that I really like is we're going to go ahead and delete these tags, move them around again, and just drop a sphere right here and scale it down and make it a collider body. And then we will use that with an attractor inside of it, set to probably 1,000 for starters, and hide it. And just hit play, and oh, we need to make sure these dynamic. And hit play, and now they're colliding with it, but it's too big, so let's make it smaller again. And again, too big, so let's make it really small. The only problem is we do need to make sure that it doesn't run into that these don't run into the attractor, because if they do, I'll show you what happens. They shoot off. So what we can do is turn the strength down, and now these are just rolling around each other. We'll grab a camera, and we can go ahead and start with that, and get a good framing. And I think we might just move this object as well. And there we go. We'll set the time scale to 10% because in space, things don't as often seem to move that fast. So now they're just floating in space and they'll eventually collide. And they look really good. I really like them. I think they're a really great start, and I think we can take them places. You know, this is a great beginning to what can turn into a lot of quality, I think. So maybe we'll take that time scale and turn it to 30%. And now say you're doing a space animation for film or for a client or for fun, and these two objects are colliding. So and that's really quick. So one thing I want to do is I'm actually going to delete the sphere and just keep the attractor, and I'm going to go to enabled, and I'm going to just hit play and let them get close. And at 79, I'm going to hit a keyframe, and at 80, I'm going to turn off the attractor. And that's going to give these velocity towards each other, but then they're going to not hit the attractor and then fly off. This is more of just a simulation to help give them some direction. And I like that. So let's go ahead and save this. I think that looks really cool, very spacey. And something you could do here if you wanted to is, if you have Cinema 4D, you can use the TP toolkit. And when you have your two objects collide, you can use a dynamic collision emitter or a point emitter. And you can learn how to use that on thinkparticle.com. But you could actually have some particles spray out inside of these objects. And make it look like these little rocks chipped off and are flying out, and it's a cool effect. So anyways, these are our asteroids, and I'm going to add a little bit more light to the scene to really pull it together. And let's go ahead and use the Octane Studio Kit, and we will actually just pull this up. And actually, let's pull it down and over this way. And we will make this softbox really large and not visible by a camera. And we will set the temperature to be that of about the sun, and set it to be really dark. And make sure that we turn off shadow visibility. So this just kind of adds a little bit more life to the scene. And this is just kind of making it so you can see a little bit more of these asteroids. And let's just let's get a good frame here. Definitely want to be on the side of one of these, I think, because then it'll kind of give us a hero and asteroid, and we'll rotate it so that we can get a good pleasant view. And we'll just hit play and they'll go do their thing. And maybe we could add some depth of field. Hopefully that isn't too strong. And in space, we use 50mm lenses because we said so. So we'll set that, and then we'll also set some motion blur. And then we just need to right click on both of these objects, and we will make sure that we use motion blur. And we've got this really cool render, and we'll just hit play and let it fly off. And one thing to kind of add a little bit more to the scene is to create some really small ones. And I'm actually going to just pull these down, pull out of the camera, hide the softbox in camera, and we're going to drop this in a cloner and add a random effector and put these in a grid array. And if they fit in the grid array, then we're good. And we will change the scale on these. And we're actually going to scale these on each separate axis so that they have even more variation. And then we'll vary the rotation. And now we've got these nice little space rocks. And we'll pull these in. Actually, maybe we'll pull these out. And set the random to be like 550 or something like that. Really just give them some random variation. And hit play. And they're going to take just a moment. All right. And we need to just move that keyframe up to probably about halfway. And we'll reframe it. And reposition all of these. Okay. And that should be good to go. We'll just go ahead and hit play, and these will start animating around. And we'll resend the scene. It's collecting everything. There's a lot of geometry. Each of these is 100 polygons, or 100,000 polygons. Let's see that Octane can handle this, because we're not using any instancing right now. And then we'll go ahead and wrap the tutorial in just a moment. So, again, for those of you interested in checking out the mountain kit, it is available right now at thinkparticle.com, and you can use the checkout code IFinished for finishing this video tutorial. Oh, that's still loading. And use that at checkout, and you can actually get the mountain kit 10% off in addition to what it is already on its initial sale. And this is going to stick around, this coupon code. So go ahead and check that out, and Let's go ahead and let this load in. Alright, so I just enabled render instances and it did work, so we're set. And one thing we're going to do to change this is I don't like how static these random rocks out here are. So let's go ahead and actually set this to a noise random mode and the animation speed to maybe 10. And we can set it to indexed and hit play from the very beginning. And these should actually come to life now. And that'll help. So they're moving pretty quick. One thing I want to do is actually pull them out and let's rescale this one more time. Okay, so if we pull it to right there, alright, those should work pretty well. I just wanted to have a few random rocks floating in space. And we'll actually set the animation speed to 2. Slow it down. And if we're lucky, nothing will hit the attractor at the problem point. And it looks like it worked out. So we'll just go ahead and hit render and make sure that these look good. And I feel like they're very staged, so we're gonna grab one more random effector, and we will scale these in a uniform scale and make sure that it is applied. And that should be good. We'll actually, we'll probably just bring them down so that they're pretty subtle. And we'll use that rotate or that extra position offset that we had because I like it. And then that one random rock flying through at the beginning looks like it'll be pretty cool. And that extra variation just helps a lot. And, you know, we made one asteroid and we're getting a pretty cool look here. It does look a little repetitive with this one. So the way to fix that is to hide it. And send it one more time. And then hit play. And I think that depth of field is just really quite too strong. We'll turn it down. Reframe the camera. And take that softbox and turn it down. And then another thing we could do is just turn up the focal length and get more so of just kind of a hidden part of the scene. Not show everything, but just kind of focus on some of the details. Let's just play with the framing and see what we can find. So now we have these two asteroids flying towards each other. And we can actually just turn up the attractor strength initially, and that will work immediately with all of our objects in the scene, and Looks like none of them had any problems with running into it. One of them actually went around it, and that was really cool. And they collide, and they'll spin. And let's go to our Octane settings, and we'll use path tracing, and set it up to a linear render with a gamma of 2.2, and turn off the vignetting, see if a neutral response does anything. It shouldn't in this case. See if we want to add any bloom power. It looks pretty good. And that seems to be what we'd like to do, I think. That seems pretty good. And let's just look through the rest of these. I think I just want to drop the camera under a null and rotate that null like this. Maybe not that much, okay. And then just have these hit right smack dab center frame. And see with and without the bloom power. We could do that in post, but I think I'm gonna skip a lot of compositing in post in this case, just personally for this project, and leave it at that. And that'll be good. So let's talk about one thing really quick. This technique for the background, to make that background go away, it works very well. But if we turn on the alpha channel, we will not have an alpha, we'll have a black background because we see the sphere. So the way to go around that is to set it to an object ID and make sure that you have your object ID, and that way you can bake in the alpha with that, or let's just go ahead and use this. You can bake in an alpha at render time with that. So anyways, there you go, that's how you do that. Because, you know, a Luma mat wouldn't work with this. And that's it. And we'll just go ahead and hit render. So anyways, thank you for watching and listening to me ramble about the mountain kit. We're very excited to have released it, and we think it's a pretty solid kit. If you go check out the product page, you can see a lot of awesome renders, and you can see all of the different brushes extruded. This is the only place to find this currently, where you can actually see every single brush's visual detail and what they look like when they're used. So all the height maps, and you can see what it looks like to have a flow map integrated. Right here you can see the flow maps used, and it helps kind of pull up the brightness in this area right here and right here. And what this represents is the precision detail we put into these. You can have a lot of fun creating some really cool abstract renders, sculpt in mountains, and you know, there's a lot you can do with it. So go ahead and check out the mountain kit today. It's $100 for the bundle currently, and $25 each mountain for each mountain kit pack. And you can use iFinished, the code iFinished at checkout, to save an extra 10%, including after this week when the 10% off sale is no longer going. So also check out our other videos explaining how to create mountains with the mountain kit, or how to create this other project we did. So thanks for watching. I am Sam Welker, and I'll catch you guys next time.